The great starship Hope floated silently above the alien planet of Zalara. Its shiny silver surface reflected the bright light of Zalara's twin suns. Inside the ship, Captain Marcus Hale stood by the large window watching the strange world below. This was the first time humans had come so close to the powerful Zalaran Empire, ruled by Queen Zarina. Marcus felt both nervous and excited. This mission could change the future of humanity forever. Marcus was not just a soldier. He was a diplomat and a linguist. He had studied many languages from Earth and beyond, but the language of the Zalarans was a mystery. The Zalarans did not speak with their mouths like humans. Instead, they used a mix of soft sounds and tiny changes in the colors of their skin. They could also send thoughts directly into others' minds, a skill humans did not have. The Hope had traveled for months to reach Zalara. Their message was simple. Humans wanted peace and friendship. But the Zalarans were known to be proud and cautious. They did not trust easily, especially not strangers from distant stars. A soft beep sounded. Marcus turned to see the ship's computer displaying the arrival order. The Zalaran royal palace had sent a message. The human envoy was to come to the palace but was not allowed to speak during any meetings. Marcus's heart sank. How could he explain his mission without words? "We must obey their rules," said Lieutenant Aya, standing beside him. She was the ship's communication expert. "We will find another way," Marcus nodded. He thought about all the ways humans could communicate without speaking. Writing, gestures, drawings, even sign language. But would the Zalarans understand? They had never met humans before. The shuttle carrying Marcus and his team landed in a large courtyard filled with strange glowing plants. Tall towers of glass and metal rose around them, shining in the sun. The air smelled fresh but strange, with hints of sweet and spicy smells mixed together. The team was greeted by Zalaran guards, tall and slender with smooth blue skin. Their eyes were large and black, shining like stars. They spoke in soft musical tones, but the words were strange to human ears. A guard motioned for Marcus to follow. They walked through long halls filled with shimmering walls that changed color. The palace was a place of beauty and power. At last they reached the throne room. Queen Zarina sat on a high throne, her skin glowing with soft gold light. She wore a crown made of shining crystals that sparkled like the stars. Beside her sat her daughter, Princess Lyra. The princess was quiet, watching the room with calm eyes, but Marcus noticed something unusual. She did not wear the glowing earrings that all Zalaran used to send thoughts and sounds. Instead, she had small symbols painted on her wrists. Marcus felt a sudden wave of sadness. He guessed the princess could not hear or speak. In the Zalaran world, this must be very difficult. The queen looked at Marcus with sharp eyes. She did not smile, but there was curiosity in her gaze. "You are the human envoy," she said in her soft voice, which echoed gently in the room. "You have come far, but you will speak no words here." Marcus bowed his head. "Yes, Your Majesty. I will follow your rules." The queen nodded and motioned for him to stand in front of her. "Show us your message." Marcus reached into his bag and pulled out a small tablet. He typed slowly, "We come in peace. We want friendship." The queen's eyes flickered as she read the words. She spoke softly to her guards, and one of them brought a device. It translated the text into musical tones that the Zalarans could understand. After a moment, the queen spoke again. "Your message is clear, but words alone are not enough. Actions show true meaning." Marcus understood. He had to prove humanity's kindness and strength without speaking. But how? As the meeting ended, Marcus noticed Princess Lyra watching him carefully. She did not speak or move, but her eyes seemed to hold a secret. Marcus remembered the painted symbols on her wrists. Could it be a language? A way to communicate without sound? That night in his room, Marcus studied the symbols he had seen. They looked like simple lines and shapes. He searched his memory and found a match. Earth's sign language. Could the princess use a form of sign language? It was rare, but some humans used it to communicate without words. The next day, Marcus asked to see the princess again. The queen agreed, but warned him to remain silent. When Marcus entered the princess's chamber, he saw her sitting by a window, looking out at the twin suns. He smiled softly and made a simple gesture. He pointed to himself and then to her, signing, "Hello." Lyra's eyes widened, and a small smile appeared on her lips. She signed back slowly. "Hello." Marcus's heart lifted. This was the start of something new. He began to sign more words. Friend, peace, hope. Lyra responded with quick signs, her fingers moving like dancing shadows. They spent hours learning from each other. Marcus felt the joy of true connection without words. For Lyra, it was the first time she had shared her world with another person. Word of their secret meeting spread quietly in the palace. Some Zelleran guards watched with suspicion. The queen, however, remained silent but thoughtful. Marcus knew their time was limited. The Zellarans did not welcome change easily, but he also knew that through this silent language, a bridge could be built between two very different worlds. As the sun set behind the palace towers, Marcus signed one last word to Lyra. Trust. She signed back with a bright smile. Trust. Outside, the stars began to twinkle, shining down on the silent visitor and the princess who had found her voice. The morning sun cast warm golden light across the Zellaran palace. Inside one of the quieter wings, Princess Lyra sat near a tall window, her eyes fixed on the sky. The soft light reflected in her dark eyes, and a gentle breeze played with the thin silver curtains. The world outside was bright and full of sounds, but Lyra heard none of it. Since birth, Lyra had lived in silence. Unlike the other Zellarans, who spoke through sounds and colors and could share thoughts like whispers in the wind, she could not hear. The strange condition made her different in a society where communication was everything. For the princess, silence was not peaceful. It was lonely. Her mother, Queen Zarina, cared deeply for her daughter but was torn by worry. The queen's people valued strength and clarity of mind, and many saw Lyra's silence as a weakness. It was why the queen kept her hidden away from the public eye, protecting her from harsh judgment but also, unknowingly, adding to her isolation. Lyra, a soft voice called. The princess turned her head to see her nursemaid, a gentle Zellaran woman named Sira. Sira's blue skin shimmered with soft pink hues as she smiled warmly. It is time for your lesson, she said kindly, moving closer. Lyra nodded and rose slowly, her movements careful and graceful. She liked her lessons. They helped her understand the world even if she could not hear it. Today, Sira brought a small book filled with pictures and symbols. It was a new way for Lyra to learn how to communicate, through writing and gestures. As Sira showed the pictures, Lyra's eyes brightened. She touched the images, memorizing each symbol. Some looked like trees, others like stars, and a few were simple shapes that could mean feelings: love, hope, or peace. Lyra's thoughts drifted to the visitor she had met yesterday, the human envoy, Marcus. He had spoken no words but had used his hands to share ideas. His hands moved with grace and kindness, and for the first time, she felt someone truly understood her. The queen watched from a distance, hidden behind a tall screen. Her eyes softened as she saw her daughter smile for the first time in a long while. She wondered about the strange human and his silent language. Later in the grand hall, the queen sat on her throne, surrounded by her advisors. They spoke quietly, their voices like music to each other but a mystery to outsiders. The queen's thoughts were far away, focused on Lyra and the human visitor. One of the advisors, a tall Zellaran named Vesh, spoke up. Your Majesty, this human envoy is different. He does not speak as we expect. How can we trust someone who will not use our voice? Queen Zarina looked at Vesh calmly. He follows our rule of silence. Perhaps his silence holds a message we have not yet learned. Vesh frowned. Still, allowing him close to the princess is dangerous. He might influence her in ways we do not understand. The queen's gaze hardened. Lyra's well-being is my responsibility. If this human can bring her joy and understanding, then I will not stop him. Back in her chamber, Lyra sat alone, practicing the signs Marcus had taught her. Her fingers moved slowly at first, then faster as she grew confident. Each sign was like a key unlocking a part of her silent world. Suddenly, the door opened quietly and Marcus stepped inside. He smiled gently and signed, "Hello, Lyra." Her face lit up. "Hello," she signed back. Marcus sat beside her and began to teach more signs. Friend, safe, together. Lyra repeated each one carefully. With every new sign, her world grew larger. For the first time, she felt less alone. But their growing friendship was not without challenges. The palace was filled with watchers, guards and servants who whispered about the human envoy and the quiet princess. Some feared change. Others were curious. One evening, while Marcus and Lyra were practicing signs near a glowing crystal lamp, A guard appeared silently at the door. His expression was stern. "Princess Lyra," he said in soft tones. "The Queen requests your presence." Lyra looked at Marcus, worry in her eyes. Marcus nodded and signed, "I will wait for you." Lyra stood and followed the guard through the twisting halls. She wondered what her mother wanted to say. In the Queen's private chamber, the air was cooler and filled with the scent of exotic flowers. Queen Zarina sat in her throne, her face unreadable. "Lyra," the Queen began, "I see the happiness you find with the human, but you must understand our people do not accept silence easily." Lyra signed carefully. "I cannot hear, Mother, but I can learn to speak in other ways." The Queen watched her daughter's hands move with slow grace. "Your silence has made you strong, Lyra, but it has also made you vulnerable." Lyra reached out and touched her mother's hand. "Marcus teaches me to share without words. I am not alone." The Queen's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She realized that her daughter's world was richer than she had imagined. "You are brave, my daughter," the Queen said softly. "We will find a way to help you and perhaps to teach our people new ways to listen." Lyra smiled, hope shining in her heart. Meanwhile, Marcus continued to explore the palace and learn more about Zalaran culture. He discovered that the Zalarans prized control and order above all else. Their strict rules made sense for their society, but left little room for differences. Humans, by contrast, were messy and loud, but filled with creativity and kindness. Marcus wanted the Zalarans to see that silence was not weakness, and differences were not threats. One afternoon, Marcus met with Sira, the nursemaid. She was kind and curious, eager to learn more about humans. "Your people," she asked softly. "How do you speak without sound?" Marcus smiled and signed slowly. "We use our hands. We show what we mean." Sira tried to copy his signs, her fingers awkward at first. Marcus laughed gently and helped her. Soon she could sign a few words. "This could help Lyra," Sira said happily. "And others like her." Marcus nodded. "Communication is more than voice. It is connection." As the days passed, the bond between Marcus and Lyra grew stronger. They shared stories through signs and drawings. Lyra showed Marcus her favorite constellations outside the window, pointing to stars and naming them silently. One night, Marcus looked at the stars and thought about Earth, his home. It was a place of many voices, many languages, but also many people who struggled to understand each other. Here in this distant palace, he found a new way to connect, but he knew their secret could not stay hidden forever. The palace was a place of power, and change was slow. Some would fear it, some would resist. Still, Marcus believed in hope. He believed that through silence, a new kind of voice could rise, a voice of understanding, kindness, and friendship. And for Princess Lyra, that voice was a lifeline, opening a world beyond silence. The days passed slowly in the grand Zalaran palace. Outside, the twin suns moved across the bright sky, and inside, the palace hummed with quiet activity. But for Princess Lyra and Marcus, time felt different. Every moment was filled with discovery and hope. Marcus had arrived as a silent visitor, bound by the Queen's orders not to speak. Yet through the secret language of signs, a new world had opened before them, a world where words were not needed, only understanding. Each morning, Marcus would meet Lyra in a small garden hidden behind the palace walls. The garden was a peaceful place, full of colorful flowers and soft green grass. It was the only place where Lyra felt free to be herself. "Today, I will teach you new signs," Marcus said one bright morning, his fingers moving carefully. Lyra smiled and copied him. She loved learning. Each sign was like a small treasure, a way to share thoughts that had been trapped inside her for so long. "Friend," Marcus signed, and Lyra repeated. "Hope." He signed next. Lyra's eyes sparkled as she learned the new word. Slowly, Marcus began to understand the beauty of the Zalaran language. It was different from Earth's sign language, more fluid, mixed with subtle changes in skin color and small hand movements. Marcus tried to copy these changes, but it was difficult for him. Lyra watched him with amusement and patience. "You are learning," she signed with a smile. One day, as they practiced under the shade of a tall silver tree, Marcus noticed that Lyra's hands moved faster, more confidently. She was no longer just repeating his signs, she was creating her own. Curious, Marcus asked, "Can you teach me your signs?" Lyra nodded and began to sign. Her fingers formed shapes and patterns Marcus had never seen before. Her skin shifted colors softly as she signed, adding a silent melody to her hands. Marcus tried to follow. It was like learning a new song without sound, a dance of light and movement. As the days turned to weeks, their secret language grew richer. Marcus recorded everything in his tablet, hoping to share this discovery with the Zalaran queen and someday with the entire empire. But the palace was not without danger. Word of the human envoy's unusual behavior reached the ears of the queen's advisors. Many feared that Marcus's influence on the princess could lead to chaos. They did not understand the silent bond growing between the two. One evening, as Marcus and Lyra signed in the garden, a shadow moved quietly among the trees. It was Vesh, the queen's advisor who had been watching closely. "Why do you teach the princess these strange signs?" Vesh asked, his voice low but sharp. Marcus looked up, calm and steady. "Because it helps her speak. Because silence does not mean loneliness." Vesh frowned. "Our empire is built on order and tradition. Your human ways may bring disorder." Marcus stood determined. "Order is important. But so is understanding. Lyra is not alone anymore because of this language." Vesh shook his head and left, but his words stayed with Marcus. He knew change would not come easily. That night, Marcus sat alone on the balcony looking up at the stars. The sky was filled with sparkling lights, each one a sun in a distant world. Somewhere out there, other humans were watching the same stars, dreaming of peace. Lyra joined him quietly, sitting beside him. She signed slowly. "Stars are like words, many and bright." Marcus smiled and signed back, and together they tell stories. Their bond was growing beyond words, beyond signs. It was a connection of hearts and minds. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Queen Zarina wrestled with her own feelings. She had always been proud and strong, but her daughter's silence had softened her. Seeing Lyra smile again, thanks to the human envoy, touched a part of her she had kept hidden. The queen decided to meet Marcus in private. In the quiet of her chambers, she spoke gently. "Your silence has brought my daughter joy. I do not understand your language, but I see its power." Marcus bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty." "Communication is more than sound. It is the bridge between hearts." The queen nodded slowly. "Perhaps it is time for our people to learn new ways to listen without words." Encouraged by the queen's words, Marcus and Lyra continued their lessons. They invited Sira, the nursemaid, to join. She was eager to learn, practicing the signs with laughter and joy. Soon other palace members became curious. Some guards and servants watched quietly, their expressions changing from suspicion to wonder. One day, during a palace gathering, Marcus used the new signs to greet the queen. Her eyes filled with tears as she understood the message: peace and hope. The moment was small but powerful. However, not all were pleased. Vesh and some other advisors whispered of dangers and threats. They warned the queen against trusting the human envoy. But Queen Zarina stood firm. "We will not fear what we do not understand. We will embrace it." Her decision marked the beginning of a new era for the Zalaran Empire. As the secret language spread, more people began to learn it. It became a way for those who could not hear or speak to join in the life of the empire. For Princess Lyra, the language was a gift that opened her world. For Marcus, it was proof that humans could teach and learn in ways beyond words. Together, they had created a new voice, a voice of hope, kindness, and unity. And the stars outside the palace window seemed to shine brighter, as if the universe itself was listening. The palace corridors were quieter than usual. Word had spread through the halls like a soft breeze. Something was changing in the Zalaran Empire. Queen Zarina had made a bold decision. She would allow the human envoy, Marcus, to teach the secret sign language to more people, beginning with those who could not hear or speak. For many Zalarans, this was surprising. The empire had always valued tradition and order above all else. But the queen believed that to grow stronger, they needed to open their hearts as well as their minds. In her private chambers, the queen sat thoughtfully, watching Princess Lyra practice signs with Marcus and Sira. The princess's fingers moved with ease now, and her smile was bright and full of life. It warmed the queen's heart to see her daughter so happy. One day, the queen invited her advisors to a special meeting. The grand room was filled with the usual tension and whispers, but the queen's voice was calm and steady. We face a moment of change, she began. Our empire has always been proud of its ways, but we must also be proud of our ability to learn and grow. Marcus has shown us a new way to communicate, a way that includes those we once left behind. Vesh, the chief advisor, frowned and spoke sharply. Your Majesty, change is dangerous. The human silent language is strange and may weaken our traditions. The queen met his gaze firmly. Strength does not come only from tradition, Vesh. It comes from understanding and kindness. Lyra's happiness proves that. The room was silent. Some advisors looked uncertain, while others whispered quietly among themselves. Outside the meeting, Marcus continued teaching the sign language. More palace members joined the lessons, eager to learn this new form of communication. Guards, servants, and even some nobles found themselves fascinated by the beauty and meaning of the signs. Marcus was patient and kind, never losing hope even when some struggled to learn. He believed deeply in the power of connection. To him, language was not just words or sounds, it was the bridge between souls. One afternoon, as Marcus and Lyra practiced near the palace's reflecting pool, a young Zalaran guard approached cautiously. "May I learn?" the guard asked, his voice soft. Lyra smiled and signed, "Yes, friend." The guard nodded and joined them. Slowly the group grew. It was no longer just Marcus and Lyra. It was a small community learning to break the silence. But not everyone welcomed the change. Vesh and a few other advisors met in secret, worried that the human envoy was gaining too much influence. They whispered of plots and dangers, hoping to find a way to stop what they called the silent threat. Meanwhile, Queen Zarina stood firm. She visited Lyra often, watching her daughter's progress and speaking quietly with Marcus. The queen knew that the future of her empire depended on more than power. It depended on compassion. One evening, during a formal dinner in the Great Hall, the queen surprised her guests. As the assembly waited for her to speak, the queen signed slowly and clearly, her fingers moving with grace. The room was silent, eyes wide with surprise. Then Marcus stepped forward and translated the signs aloud. Peace, understanding, hope for all. The hall filled with quiet applause. For many, it was the first time they truly saw the queen's heart. Vesh looked away, his face tight with anger and fear. After the dinner, the queen took Marcus and Lyra aside. "You have changed more than just our language," she said softly. "You have changed our hearts." Lyra smiled and signed, "Thank you, Mother." "Because of you I have a voice," Marcus nodded. "Your Majesty, this is only the beginning. Together we can build a future where no one is left unheard." Days turned into weeks, and the sign language spread beyond the palace walls. Townspeople and merchants learned it, and soon it became a symbol of hope for those who had long been ignored. The Zalaran Empire was beginning to change, growing stronger not just in power, but in kindness. Yet in the shadows, Vesh and his group plotted. They believed that too much change would break the empire's order. They prepared to confront the queen and Marcus, hoping to restore the old ways. One night, as Marcus walked alone through the palace gardens, Vesh appeared from the darkness. "You are a good teacher," Vesh said coldly, "but you do not understand our people." Marcus faced him calmly. "I understand more than you think. People want to be heard. They want to be seen." Vesh shook his head. "Your silence is a lie. It hides weakness," Marcus smiled gently. "Silence can also hide strength. Look at Lyra. She is stronger than many because she has learned to speak without words." Vesh's eyes narrowed. "We shall see how long your influence lasts." The tension between old and new grew, but the queen's support kept Marcus and Lyra strong. One morning, Queen Zarina called a council meeting with all the empire's leaders. She stood tall and proud. "We will no longer fear silence or difference. We will embrace all voices, spoken or signed. This is the future of the Zalaran Empire." The room erupted in murmurs, but the queen's words carried weight. Lyra signed beside her mother, her hands moving with confidence and joy. "Together," she signed, "we are stronger." Marcus watched, his heart full. The silent visitor had found a voice not just for himself, but for an entire empire. And for the first time, the stars outside the palace seemed to shine with a new light, bright and full of promise. The day of the great celebration arrived, filling the Zalaran palace with color, light, and music. It was the day Queen Zarina had declared a new beginning for the Empire, a time to honor all voices, whether spoken or silent. In the Grand Hall, people gathered from all corners of the Empire. Nobles, guards, servants, and visitors came together in a rare moment of unity. Many had come to see the human envoy, Marcus, and to witness the change he had helped bring. Princess Lyra stood beside her mother, her hands moving with graceful confidence as she signed to the crowd. Her skin glowed softly with the colors of the sign she made: hope, peace, friendship. Marcus watched from nearby, feeling a deep pride. He remembered when he first arrived at the palace, told to stay silent and keep away. Now he was part of something greater, a story of courage, love, and new beginnings. The queen stepped forward, her voice steady as she addressed her people. "Today, we celebrate not only our strength but also our kindness," Queen Zarina said. "For too long some voices have been unheard. Today we promise to listen and to learn from each other." She motioned toward Marcus and Lyra. "These two have shown us that silence is not weakness. It is a new way to speak, a new way to understand." Applause filled the room, warm and genuine. Even those who once doubted now saw the beauty of the silent language. Vesh, the chief advisor, stood in the back, his face unreadable. He had watched the change but had not yet accepted it. Still, he said nothing. After the Queen's speech, Marcus and Lyra took the stage together. They performed a story in signs, a tale of stars, friendship, and hope. The crowd watched in silence, moved by the graceful movements and the glowing colors that danced across Lyra's skin. When the story ended, the hall erupted in cheers. People were touched by the power of this new language, a language without sound but full of meaning. The celebration continued late into the night with music, dance, and laughter. For the first time in a long while, the palace felt like a true home for everyone. Later, as the crowd dispersed, the Queen took Marcus and Lyra aside. "You have done more than I imagined," she said softly. "You have given my daughter a voice and given my people hope." Lyra smiled and signed, "Thank you, Mother." "For believing," Marcus nodded. "The future is bright because we listen and understand." The Queen's eyes shone with tears of joy. In the days that followed, the new sign language spread beyond the palace walls. Schools taught it to all children, including those who could hear. It became a way for people to connect deeply beyond words. Marcus prepared to return to Earth, his mission complete, but he promised to visit again. The bonds he had formed here were too strong to break. On his last day, Marcus and Lyra stood together on the palace balcony, looking out at the glowing horizon. "Will you come back?" Lyra signed. Marcus smiled and signed back, "Always." As the sun set, their hands joined in a silent promise, a promise that silence would never be a barrier again. Queen Zarina watched them from the doorway, her heart full. The Empire was changing, growing stronger with every silent word spoken and every heart opened. The stars above twinkled in the night sky, shining down on a world where silence was no longer empty, but full of life and love. And so, the story of the silent princess and the human envoy became a legend of courage, kindness, and a new voice for the Zalaran Empire.